Revelation 2782. From the 21st of June 1943. Establishing the right relationship with God. Man enters into the right relationship with God when he turns to Him for help. For then he recognizes his own weakness and the power of the one who created him. In the original state the being, by virtue of its free will, turned away from its creator by leaning towards the will of the one who misused the strength from God for creations which no longer completely corresponded to God's will. However, every entity which emerged from the will of God's adversary and from the strength of God was free to decide to whom it wanted to feel affiliated. Thus it was able to decide for itself by virtue of its free will for God or for his adversary. And it turned away from God, the original source of strength, from whom it had emerged. But the original state cannot be restored in any other way than that the beingness fully and completely confesses God again. The being is not forced into this right relationship with God, but its free will has to find its way to Him itself, and everything God has created only serves to change this free will so that it strives towards God of its own accord. Therefore the being has almost reached its goal when it prays to God as a human being. Then its will is no longer turned away from God, and it only needs a short period of probation to become mature for life in eternity, for the kingdom where no earthly external form weighs it down, where it can fulfill its actual purpose and be blissfully happy. The human being's free will may not be touched, neither by God nor by evil power, and therefore it can never be determined into the right relationship with God, but it has to enter into it of its own accord. Now the harder and more unbending this human will is, the greater tribulations it needs in order to give up this resistance against God. This is the only means God uses, that He shapes his earthly life such that it appears unbearable to him in order to indirectly induce him to turn to Him for help. He will also do this as soon as he believes in a higher powerful being. But precisely this faith is lacking in people who still carry a completely wrong will within themselves. This is the endeavor of God's adversary, to destroy all faith in Him and to confuse people's thinking. But God also helps people here and tries to make them think through sorrowful experiences. Thus, He often gives them the opportunity to seriously take a stand on the question, what is the relationship between the creature and its creator? God also reveals Himself to people who deny Him if only they pay attention to all events which accompany their earthly life. He only seeks to change their will. And if an unbearable adversity causes the human being to turn to Him for help, then the spell is broken, then he no longer completely belongs to God's adversary, but he seeks to detach himself from God's power and voluntarily submits himself to his Creator of eternity. And that is why prayer is the first thing. It is the admission of one's own weakness and the acknowledgement of a power of such great significance. For the human being is now ready to let himself be guided and led by this power, and now he can leave himself to this divine guidance without worry, and as soon as his will leans towards God he will be seized by God's love and safely guided upwards. Anyone who calls upon God for help professes to belong to Him, to be His child, and thus he establishes the right relationship between a child and the Father and will then also receive His fatherly love. He will receive strength and grace without measure, and his earthly life will then provide him with the maturity he needs in order to enter His kingdom as a child of the Father. Amen.